Well, hello friends, Mystery here, and today we are going to be huge nerds. We are breaking down whether or not Resurgence is good aura and what the math behind it is. Resurgence gives you and allies in coherency 50% of your normal coherency toughness regeneration regardless of enemy proximity. So in order to understand how good this is comparative to not having the aura, we need to first understand what the hell coherency toughness regeneration is, how it compares to normal toughness regeneration, and then look at the numbers, and that'll tell us whether or not this is actually a good aura. And we'll also be taking into account what happens if we take additional coherency toughness regeneration on our curios to mix with this. But let's go ahead and get started. Let's first talk about what this is in difference from regular toughness regeneration like we see in auto repair doctrines here, where we're replenishing toughness per second. What the difference is fundamentally is that toughness per second is a percentage based, right? This sort of thing, and every single toughness regeneration node in the game that I can think of off the top of my head is a percentage based regeneration effect. And that means that, well, if you have a lot of toughness, then this is going to regenerate more. The more toughness you stack, the better it gets. And since many classes these days stack a lot of toughness, like the skitarii uses generally triple toughness curios, that means that you get a lot of value out of these percentage-based regenerations. However, there is one exception to this rule, and that is coherency toughness regeneration. Coherency toughness regeneration is a flat number that you regenerate regardless of whether you have increased or decreased amount of overall toughness. And this flat number we can actually find by checking out Cooley's guide. I had it up here a second ago. So you can see right here, these are the flat regeneration amounts that we have if you have one ally in coherency, 3.75. If you have 2, we have 5.625, and if you have 3, that's at 7.5, okay? But this is only when you are near your allies and not in combat. If you are in combat, as you can see here, what happens is you drop to 0. Well, what does that mean to be in combat? So what does Darktide mean when it says being in combat? Well, in Darktide terms, all it means is that there is an enemy who is in one of the threatened zones around your character. These are the zones where melee enemies are directed to go in order to throw attacks at you. So basically, you'll notice that sometimes when you have melee enemies on you, they are kind of leashed to you, right? If you move a little bit, they'll follow you around. They'll continue to throw attacks and kind of stumble after you. That's because they're attached to one of those zones. And as long as you have a melee enemy within those zones who's attacking at you, whether or not they hit you or whether or not you're even attacking them, you cannot regenerate any coherency toughness. That means this system is basically going to do nothing at all, right? You could potentially, being in coherency, if we look at this clip here, by the way, I have 3 of these little icons right here. This means I'm in triple coherency. I should be regenerating 7.5 toughness per second, but I can't because I'm threatened by these enemies. And what I did in this clip is I took off all of my perks that would give me other sources of toughness, and I took the aura that's going to give me the ammo for the skitarii so that I can disable the base passive, the base aura, which also gives this coherency toughness. So what you'll see in this clip, and I'm actually going to zoom in on the toughness bar here. Watch, I'm going to take a hit here, and then I'll start to regain my toughness. Eventually I'll take a hit, I think. I'll start to regain my toughness, and then I'll just stop. Because right here, right now, I have now gotten an enemy who's engaged with me in melee. He's stuck into my threatened zone. And now I got away from him a little bit. He targeted somebody else for a second, or he got stunned, and then there we go. So those little tiny blips there where I'm regenerating for a moment and then it stops, regenerating for a moment and then it stops. If you see here, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of, positioning away from enemies, and now I get to regenerate the entire rest of my toughness bar, even though I'm like right next to all those enemies. That was not considered quote unquote in combat, right? That was considered me being out of combat for purposes of regeneration. So I was regenerating the full amount per second. Now let's check out what this looks like if I am using the aura, because with the aura, instead of seeing that sharp stop and start of the toughness regeneration, what I should see is I should see periods of time where I have the full regeneration speed, and then periods of time where it's half that amount, because that's when the aura is preventing the enemy threatening from stopping me. So what you'll see here is that I've lost my toughness, and you'll see varying slow speed like this, and then fast speed. One other thing to note is, by the way, anytime you take damage or even a hit, even if it doesn't deal damage, it stops your regeneration. There's a pause before you can start again. We'll talk about that in a second. But see how it's really, really slow right now? This is the aura giving it its effect. But in a second here, you'll see it kind of jump up. See how the speed is moving at now? Notably a lot faster for that little bit there. That's me not being threatened by an enemy. There are enemies that have chosen to target someone else. So even within like a millisecond, the AI can change its target and not be going for you, and then you'll get the benefit of the full not in combat buff, even when you're pretty dang close to being in melee. So this aura, what it's going to do is it's going to smooth this out. Instead of having no regeneration when enemies decide to target you, you're going to get half as much. And what we can also do is we can add some more juice to this. We can add in curios, and these curios have this perk called toughness regeneration speed. And this is a really, really important thing to consider with this aura. This, I believe, does actually make this aura quite good. So these curio perks, toughness regeneration speed, does two things. Of course, it boosts the base regeneration rate of this coherency toughness regeneration by 30%, and it's additive. So this is up to 90%. It basically almost doubles it, which is a lot when you consider that we had about 7.5 per second when we were, if we pull up a Cooley's guide again, right? If we see this is the expected amount when there's no enemies threatening us in melee, right? And if we are going to take this aura, or this is the one that we'd actually get in game, if we take this aura, we will get 3.75 per second when we're around our allies and we're engaged in melee, we're in combat. And then if you have your curios on, it's going to boost that number, which is half as much, 50% as much, and it's going to boost it back by 90%. It's almost going to double it. So it brings it pretty close to the out of combat benefit that you get to start, 7.5 toughness per second. And that's a flat amount that's not scaled by anything else. Now, the other cool part about this that's not listed in Cooley's table here is that because this is the in-combat one, the out-of-combat one is 14.25 toughness per second. And you saw how relatively easy it was to get quote-unquote out of combat in that framework. It looks more like this. So check this out. We'll have periods of time in here where I'm going to be moving. This is, by the way, this is with, I took these extra 90% coherency toughness regeneration, and watch the difference here. So this is the slow speed. I'm going to get pummeled here for a second, but look at the speed this moves at when we're quote unquote out of combat. Because even though I'm in here with melee enemies, the enemies aren't actively targeting me, so I get a big sprint boost of toughness regeneration. And there was just a couple times in that clip where it was moving slower. So look at, this is what it looks like when the enemies are actually threatening you with these curios on. Pretty slow like that, right? But still not half bad, at a little bit over 7 toughness per second. So yeah, that's what this can give you, and it actually gives you one other effect that's really hard to notice in this footage, but in practice, it actually is very, very life-saving. So the toughness regeneration speed curios, they don't only increase the rate at which we are regenerating our toughness here, but they also reduce the time it takes between when we get hit and when we start to regenerate. So in this footage here, where I don't have my toughness regeneration curios, watch how long it takes before I start to regenerate at all. I get hit, and I start to regenerate there. It's about 1 3/4 seconds later. And then let's look at down here where I get hit again, but this time I have the coherency regeneration curios on. I've got 3 of them. Bump, and there we go, right? So even like with the casual observer there, you can tell that's faster, and it is a lot faster. It is, in fact, 90% faster. I guess it's 51%. If you calculate it that way, it's 51% of the normal amount of time that you would wait. So it ends up being just under a second, and that means that not only do you start regenerating faster, but then you also get a faster regen while it's going. So if you're running this aura 100%, you want to be using these curios because it shortens that gap a lot between when you take an attack or get interrupted in what you're doing and can start to regenerate and get some more toughness back in the tank. But now let's talk about what the actual math is on these skills, because this is the interesting thing here is, okay, well, we now know that we have this expected regeneration, and this is the expected regeneration we could see in combat. Is this any good though? How does this stack up as compared to, you know, something else, another talent, maybe one of the other auras? Well, let's go ahead and pull up our calculator and do a little bit of math. And okay, we've seen these numbers right here. The baseline number, this is the number that you will generate when you're not being threatened in melee, as we saw when I stepped away from those crushers and stuff. This is the amount that you regenerate normally if you aren't a skitarii or don't have a skitarii with this aura, and this is how much you'll regenerate if you have a skitarii with the aura. 3.75 toughness flat per second. But what we want to know is, how good is this? Like, how good is it? Worth a talent point? Is it worth to take this aura over one of the other auras? And the best way to do this is just to compare it to other talents that exist in the game, ones that we think are good or think are bad, and just draw conclusions from there. So let's base this off of the assumption that we're going to be hanging out near our allies in coherency when we're fighting, like an actual good player. All the more, you know, encouragement to do that, I suppose. So if we're near our 3 allies and we are in not in combat, or, you know, we might be fighting, but there's not an enemy actively threatening us, we'll regenerate 7.5 toughness per second. And that means that in the clips I was showing here, I had 185 toughness. That's with 3 16% toughness curios, and this is on non-havoc difficulty. We'll talk about havoc in a second. And this means that what I'm actually going to end up doing is going to get 7.5 toughness per second out of 185. That's going to give me 4% toughness per second. That's a 4% kickback, and that's, you know, just kind of standing around near my allies. I'm not actively engaged by a melee enemy, but I am fighting and stuff. By the way, I believe there is another toughness boost that you can get. I think it doubles your regeneration values, your coherency regeneration, when you have been lingering without being in combat at all for more than 3 seconds. So that value will double, and you'll go up a lot when enemies like actively are not able to threaten you and no one's actually fighting. So yeah, that's a really good boost that you can get back up. But that let's just assume that we're actually in the throes of combat. So yeah, you're going to get 4% per second, say when you're standing back and shooting stuff and nothing's mailing you. But let's say like some little jobber comes up and attempts to melee you, or he gets stuck into melee with you, a vanguard or something. That's obviously going to cut this in half, because we are only going to get 50% of the regeneration when we have this aura effective. But the aura is going to keep us regenerating half. So even when we are engaged in melee, we're going to get 2% per second when we're near our allies. That's pretty small, but it's not nothing, right? So that's at least something. However, the real juice comes in when we consider the curios, the 90% additional coherency regeneration curios we can put, the perks we can put on our curios. That is going to multiply this by 1.9. So we're actually going to end up at 3.85% of our toughness per second, even while we are engaged in melee with an enemy or any number of enemies, right? That's the minimum amount that we could be getting near our allies at all. So staying near your allies, you're getting almost 4% per second. And to put this in perspective, look at some of these other talents, right? Everybody automatically looks at auto repair doctrines and they go, oh, that's a really good talent. That is up to, if you have max charges, like what, 6%, or like not even, set 5.5% per second, right? And this could be as low as 3% if you have no charges. So it could be down to like 4.5. We also have nodes over here that are really good, like a superior defense engrams, which on average is about 4% per second over the course of the game. And we have nodes like surge extension that are going to give you 5% per second. These are really, really good nodes. And now this node is guaranteeing you almost 4% while you're in combat. And that's not even considering, what if you're not in combat? What if you are standing back a little bit from the fray? What if you're able to get those enemies who are attacking you to not attack you? What if the damage you're taking is at range and you get a second to get a breather, but you're still near your allies? Well, then you're just going to double this value, right? You're going to go back to the expected value. You're going to be generating almost 8% of your toughness per second, because it's doing a flat amount. And that flat amount out of the 185 that the skitarii has is actually a lot, right? This is how much per second? I think it's like 14 something. So we do times 185. Get back to our, yeah. So 14.25 will be our overall non-threatened amount per second. And we can see that if we look at Cooley's guide, this is the amount that if you're in combat in game, you'll get 7.125. If you aren't actually actively in melee combat, then you'll get double that. And that means that stepping out for even a second or having enemies stop attacking you means you're going to regenerate over 14 toughness every single second, which is big, right? That's a big number, almost 8% per second. That's really good. Now, let's talk about Havoc, because Havoc is where a lot of players aspire to be. And like it's big, it's tough, right? Let's see what happens. Here we are back in the game. Let's see what happens when we go into a Havoc 40 game, shall we? Okay, so here we are on Havoc 40, and look at my toughness bar now, by the way. You see it? 119. So on Havoc, the game lowers your maximum toughness. It lowers your maximum toughness. Since all the other regeneration effects in the game are percentage based, like auto repair doctrines, like superior defense engrams, all that stuff, this stuff is going to be scaled down, right? It's going to make these lower as a result. So 3% is smaller as an actual number. So you can take less damage before you get hurt. Makes sense, right? But what isn't scaled by this is our coherency toughness regeneration. So now if we go back to our maths here, if we have a, what did we have? 119 in terms of our toughness. If we are regenerating that 7.125 in combat, and we have only 119 total base toughness, that's a 6% toughness every single second in combat. So this is better than any other single regenerative effect on Havoc 40, hands down. Because it's active 100% of the time as long as you are near your allies enough to get that coherency. And honestly, with how crazy is Havoc is like these days, staying close in coherency so you guys can fend off like infinity fucking bursters is the name of the game. And keep in mind also that if you are out of combat, if you are standing back from enemies, if there's not an enemy actively threatening you in melee, you would double that to almost 12% of your toughness every single second. And so when you're looking at gameplay footage that I have where I'm getting chipped and then all of a sudden my toughness is like shooting back up, that's because this regeneration effect is adding on to everything else. We already have close to 25-ish or 20-ish% that we can regenerate per second. And then on Havoc 40, this is an additional 10% plus per second. But the only downside is that it doesn't actively go. You have to wait that amount of time for it to start, right? Just as we demonstrated before. But fortunately, that coherency toughness regeneration on the curios is going to boost that. It's going to boost it so that it's even shorter. It's going to take less than a second to regenerate versus almost 2 full seconds to start regenerating, which is a massive difference in terms of getting your toughness back recuperating. So it is huge on this class. And remember that this buff, this aura, doesn't just affect us. It's an aura, obviously. So not only are we as greedy little gremlins getting this benefit, but everybody else on our team is as well. And so even if they don't bring those coherency regeneration auras, they're still getting something out of it. But there's one character that if they are built to take into account the fact they have a skitarii on their team who's using this, can carry it farther than anybody else. And that is the Ogren. The Ogren can become a freaking god with this on his team because the Ogren has an extra coherency regeneration thing up here at the top, linchpin, 100% additional coherency toughness regeneration, and he can boost the size of his coherency radius, so he's always considered in coherency pretty much, but this is the one we want right here. So what this is going to do, if we have our little skitarii boy on the team, is instead of regenerating 3.75 per second when we're just chilling around, we're going to double that. And then we're going to add in curios if we're building for that too. So we would take 3.75 flat per second, and we would multiply this by 2.9, which is going to give us almost 11 flat toughness per second, which is insane, right? That is a ton of flat toughness per second, and this is considered when we are considered in melee. That is in melee with this going on. And of course, if you're not in melee, if you're not actively being engaged, you're regenerating 20 almost 22 toughness per second, which you can do anytime you're at range. And so what that means is that if we look at this screen right here, where I'm on a Havoc 40 Psychanium, I have 120 toughness. So yeah, 21.75 out of 120 is almost 20% of your toughness per second if you are not actively threatened in melee, and it would be, you know, only half of that, 9% per second if you are, which is awesome. That means that just for blocking for a moment, you know, we are going to be able to get this regeneration back and really, like, you know, we can get a ton of our toughness back, percentage based and flat, both ways. And yeah, this is such a good coherency aura. It's so good. I kind of wish there was something else that other characters could do for this. I love they brought this back to the game because it's been such a useless thing for such a long time. But yeah, this aura, I highly encourage you, if you see a skitarii on your team that is running this, get a set of curios that has this on it. It will actually add up a lot, especially if you're Ogren and you can simply slot an extra point for this talent. I mean, there's probably plenty of talents in here where you could knock that out and grab that instead, because it is such a regenerative powerhouse there. You could probably take out Steady Grip and do that instead, because that's going to just add up so much more of the game. I don't know. But anyway, guys, that is the math behind everything. Hopefully it looks appealing to you. It's quite a very cool aura. I really enjoy that. A little bit of you know, this is the cool type of aura, as opposed to all the other boring ones which are like, hey, 10% extra damage, 10% extra ammo. Boo, those suck. So yeah, go grab this aura up, put those toughness regeneration curios on. I told you it'd be good, and have fun. Thanks for watching, guys. Mystery out of here. Bye bye.